forget, I'm going to put my phone on stun. How are you, sir? Good to see you. So I would ask the rest of you to do the same. And I've just been told that Councilmember Hogan will not be here this evening, although Councilmember Guzman is running late. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing on the agenda is some public hearings. I believe they're all zoning matters, so I will read the rules of order for public hearings for zoning matters. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request that the parcels of property which are the subject of the zoning proposal be identified in red. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone and give their name and address to the city clerk. Do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And there you go. At least it didn't play his favorite country song. All right, so we'll call to order the public hearings on zoning matters. The first item on our agenda is 3413 Catalina Drive et al., Chamblee Village Park.
Mayor and Council, this is our first zoning case of 2016 Z01. It concerns 24.2 acres. The applicant is Hennessy Cadillac. The current zoning is 67 parcels north of Peachtree Cab Airport and west of Catalina Drive, currently zoned village commercial, that had been part of a planned unit development known as International Village, and it was is subject to conditions with that PUD. The applicant has now petitioned to rezone the subject property, all 67 parcels, including some right-of-way that would be abandoned and repurposed. This would be necessary to allow the proposed use that would be classified in the permitted use table of the Unified Development Ordinance as 8.3, parking of vehicles or storage of equipment. This use requires the property to be zoned either IT or I, and it also requires a number of additional provisions. One, building materials used on the facade must meet the standards of Section 230-28 building materials, which means no metal exteriors. Number two, commercial vehicles, trailers, and heavy equipment shall not be parked or stored so as to be visible from the public rights-of-way. Number three, outdoor storage shall meet the requirements of Section 240-7B3 supplemental use provisions, which requires that they be screened. It says the storage of motor vehicles when business property should be subject to the definition of outdoor storage. With these requirements, A, outdoor storage is prohibited except where it's expressly permitted in the use table. In this case, it is permitted. B, outdoor storage shall be set back at least 15 feet from any side or rear property line. C, outdoor storage screened by a solid fence or wall at least 8 feet high or as required to screen view from adjacent property and public streets. D, the setback distance shall be landscaped to provide a year-round vegetative screen. E, outdoor storage shall not be located in the area between the front of the principal structure and a private or public street. Vehicle inventory for storage for an automobile dealer is also subject to Section 240-13D1D that says all storage and service areas should be screened from all public rights-of-way and any abutting non-commercial properties with a vegetative screen as per the buffer, landscape, and tree guidelines. So these requirements also pertain if it were to be rezoned to IT. Due to the size and proposed use of this development, consisting of over 2,000 parking spaces, it is considered to be a development of regional impact and has been reviewed accordingly by ARC and Greta. This zoning case was heard in April but deferred in order to allow adequate time for the ARC and Greta to forward their reports to the city and applicant. Staff review indicates that a number of variances will be required in addition to the rezoning if the applicant is to develop the property in accordance with the proposed site plan. Therefore, this application is also accompanied by a case 2016 V09 that will also hear tonight concurrently with this rezoning application. Based on the analysis of standards in section 280-5B2, staff recommends approval of this rezoning request if subject to the following conditions. 1, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with the set of plans for the 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to the plans required by the conditions below or otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Number 2, prior to making applications for a land disturbance permit, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of the City of Chamblee Public Works Department regarding construction of public streets serving the property and the abandonment, acquisition, and use of public rights-of-way. Number 3, prior to making application for a land disturbance permit, the applicant shall modify the site plan to provide for adequate post-construction stormwater management facilities in accordance with Chapter 340 of the UDO. 4, prior to approval of a land disturbance permit, the applicant shall record a combination plat for the subject property as well as a combination plat for the 2.57 acre tract abutting the subject property having frontage on Chamblee Dunwoody Road, and a combination plat for the 2.89 acre tract that has frontage on Chamblee Dunwoody Road and Chamblee Tucker Road, both of those ends of the property that would remain VC conditional and appear as out parcels in the concept plan they presented to us on March 2nd. 5, the applicant will donate property required for right-of-way for new streets, including the realignment of Catalina Drive pursuant to an agreement with the City of Chamblee to be prepared and enacted prior to approval of a land disturbance permit. 6, no access shall be permitted to Burt Drive except where future interparcel access connections are required by City Council. 7, construction access and trailer truck access shall be permitted to Chamblee Tucker Road via Catalina Drive. Catalina Drive shall be upgraded to Georgia Dodge standards to allow trailer truck access to the site. Number 8, no more than 2,550 vehicles shall be parked on the subject property. Number 9, the developer shall provide streetscape for the property's public street frontage that is required in the UDO for the public street frontages that are not provided with a multi-use trail. Number 10, a 6-foot high landscape berm or 6-foot tall decorative masonry wall shall be constructed along the entire northern property line and along the portions of the southern property line adjacent to the surface parking lot and driveway. Where visible from the public rights-of-way, the remaining amounts of perimeter fencing and gates shall be a maximum of 8 feet in height, shall be constructed of opaque wood design or with a fence of decorative metal pickets that is bordered by landscaping that would provide a dense visual screen. Number 11, no variances to stream buffers shall be approved on the subject property except for streams given prior approval for variances by the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Number 12, any new and existing utility services shall be placed underground except where the applicant has contributed an amount of funds to the city's streetscape bank as established in section 350-25B of the UDO. 13, the car wash shall be designed to recycle water as per state regulations. 14, buildings shall not use metal wall materials, although metal roll-up doors may be constructed on the north side and south sides of proposed buildings. 15, the developer shall respond to any recommendations contained in the review of the development of regional impact for the subject property by the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority and the Atlanta Regional Commission and either comply with them or otherwise adequately resolve outstanding issues as determined by the city manager prior to approval of a land disturbance permit. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Gary. Mark, do you have anything to add?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the public hearing portion then. All those wishing to speak in favor, please come to the microphone, Tell us your name, where you live, and/or how you're related to the project. Keep in mind we have 10 minutes for each portion of this.
Thank you. Laurel David with the Galloway Law Group, 3500 Lenox Road. The proposed development, as Gary indicated, is for parking for automobile inventory, primarily for the Hennessy, but it would also be open to other auto dealerships in Chamblee. If I could ask the city manager to open the PowerPoint presentation. This is a concept plan for the proposed facility. There would be 4 gated entrances, 1 on Blackburn, 3 on Catalina, and then 2 open access areas to the office building, and there will also be a car prep area there to prepare the cars as they're delivered. At the request of Chamblee Public Works Department, we will restrict all trailer truck access to Catalina Drive via Chamblee Tucker Road, and will upgrade Catalina to meet GDOT standards to withstand the heavy loads of trailer trucks. There is an navigation easement on this property that limits the allowable height plane. Therefore, the height of the buildings are limited as to how hard they can be is determined by the FAA. The uses are also severely restricted. No residential uses are allowed, no hotels or community centers. There are also regulations that limit construction practices, building materials, and stormwater detention, the types of detention. We met with Mario Evans and showed him the plan. He has circulated a letter in support of the proposal. I have extra copies here if you would like them, but it was emailed to you earlier today. If you could go to the second slide, please. The rezoning also contemplates a right-of-way abandonment. This exhibit shows the area of Catalina Drive and Coronado Place to be abandoned, and the dedication of new right-of-way by Hennessy for the relocation of Catalina Drive. This Catalina Drive will reestablish a connection between Chamblee Dunwoody and Chamblee Tucker, which currently doesn't exist. Next slide, please. The streetscape for Catalina will be new and improved. So in this illustration, in the top is what is required by the UDO, but on the bottom is what we're proposing, which is a landscape berm and a 30-foot landscape strip, an 8-foot multi-use path, and an additional landscape strip at the back of the curb. And the next slide shows you this in an aerial view along Catalina. Next slide, please. As part of the rezoning proposal, Hennessy proposes to donate land to the city of Chamblee for use of public as a park. Shown here to orient you, this is the green space area. And then on the next slide, if the rezoning is approved, Hennessy will also acquire the remnant parcels shown next to Blackburn and is proposing to donate this land as well for a total of about 1.6 acres. I'm going to save my comments on the variance for the next presentation, but just want to conclude by saying that the restrictions on the development of this property, due to its proximity to the airport, severely limit development options. The Hennessy proposal would be compatible with all FAA regulations as well as the navigation easement on the property. And if approved, it will enable Hennessy to reduce trailer truck traffic at its Ford and Lincoln dealerships on Peachtree Boulevard. If approved, also Curry Honda, Landmark Chrysler Dodge, Gravity Auto, and World Toyota have so far expressed a genuine interest in using this facility. There's also the potential for the applicant to offer parking to other auto dealerships and also rental car agencies in the city of Chamblee. And if achieved, this would benefit the citizens of Chamblee by further reducing parking congestion and trailer truck traffic along Peachtree Boulevard and other city streets. So we would ask that you approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come up and speak in favor of the rezoning? No? Anyone wishing to come up and speak in opposition?
I'm Tim Sagnowski. I represent New Peachtree Apartments LLC 2. live at 73 Skyland Drive in Roswell, Georgia. For now, I guess about 12 years, there's been a fence line along Burke Drive and Chamblee Tucker, which makes visibility almost impossible on both of those roads. And I'm kind of concerned as to what the streetscape will be on the Burke Drive and Chamblee Tucker areas of the project, as well as the Burke Terrace parcel that connects into the Burke Terrace Road that connects into the northern boundary of the property. So I wish for them to address that, as well as the extensive drainage.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, can I get you to spell your last name for me, please?
Sure. SAKHNOVSKY.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll move on. Any questions from the council for the staff and or the applicant?
I have a question about number 15. The developer shall respond to any recommendations contained in the review of the DRI. Are there anything that we should know about in there?
Of course, the DRI was primarily designed to deal with traffic. And it says traffic is not going to be a major concern.
Okay.
But it has several notes in there about paying attention to the stormwater runoff and to the potential protection of the streams. There are stream buffers required unless it's determined that some of these waters are not intermittent or perennial streams, and we don't know that yet.
I had a follow-up question on the stream buffer. You noted in your letter, I believe, that there may be some stream buffer variance requests from the EPD, but nothing about the city. In reviewing the site plan, it does appear that the buildings are actually within the 75-foot city stream buffer. Can you confirm that or speak to that a little bit?
We're not proposing to put buildings in the 75-foot stream buffer. If the rezoning is to be approved, we will have not only a delineation of the location of the stream, but also a surveyor to actually go out there and mark on the property exactly where the boundaries of the stream buffer are. The sort of allusion to an EPD variance is primarily to, if you wouldn't mind going towards the southern part of the property, to allow that connection across the stream. And obviously, if the EPD variance is approved, we would, I guess, need to come back to you all and seek your approval as well.
Okay. And then just one other question. You spoke to the green space a little bit, and it appeared that was on the northern side of the property. Would the buffer area on the southern side near Chamblee Tucker be provided to the city as green space as well, potentially, or would it just be the Chamblee Tucker portion?
We could certainly discuss that with the city if you wanted to pursue that option. We thought the northern side was perhaps more accessible to the public, and I think also there's some plans to do some things in the RPZ zone over on that side as well. But we would not be averse to discussing that.
Thank you.
And while I've got the podium, I would like to address the gentleman's questions. Mr. Cornell did make me aware of the problem with the fence. We, of course, don't own the property yet, won't own the property until it's rezoned, but we will talk to the owner about that fence, which I gather is obstructing vision and in the right-of-way. And I will actually address stormwater when it comes to the variance section, so if you want to hold your questions on that.
Other questions? Or other question, you mentioned something that's going on in the RPZ. I'm not sure what that is. Can you let me know what that is?
I think there's a possibility for maybe putting in a garden there or otherwise using some of the land that DeKalb County owns.
The airport, the county and the airport have plans to put a garden in over there? That's the first I've heard of that.
No.
So where's the garden going in?
I have initiated a discussion with Mario of the airport about putting in a community garden on Blackburn.
Blackburn on the
On
other
the other side
side.
Does that have anything to do conditional with this particular development here?
No.
Or Mario's willing to put in a garden over there regardless?
No, not at all. It
Because
was-
I was under the impression that you couldn't do anything over there that may attract birds And it's my understanding that planting a garden over there, because we've had this discussion before, that planting a garden over there has potential attracting birds that, birds and airplanes don't get along.
Correct.
So that's why, like I said, we've had this conversation several times, and it just has always ended up with, no, you can't put that there.
It has ended up that way, but it is actually not against FAA rules at all to do farming within an RPC.
Cool.
And I only mentioned it just to explain why we had looked at the northern area more than the southern area for potential use by the public. Also, having a crossing there, we thought that the northern area was more of an intact area.
We learn something new every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd also like to make a point of order. This is the first time that there's been a rezoning case before the mayor and council that would be enacted by resolution instead of an ordinance, which means there won't be a first and second read. It'll come up to you on Tuesday night, and you will have the opportunity to make a final decision on Tuesday night. Therefore, the conditions of approval, should you decide that's the way to go, need to be ironed out smoothly enough that we can have a motion and the conditions and the resolution all prepared by the city clerk, if possible, on before Tuesday.
And Gary, why is that? Why are we doing something different at this point?
Gary had been explaining that most other jurisdictions don't require the change to zoning by ordinance of carrying it out over 2 months. And last month there was one where that got confusing because the way the public hearing was done and all. So we asked Joe to look, and our ordinance actually says it can be done either way. So this allowed it to be done quicker and.
What's the rush?
There's.
So why now? I mean, here's the thing. Why are we just now learning about this when this is a first time the council? I would think this is something that we should be briefed on or have a discussion on, or the council should be allowed to weigh in on, or at least educated on what the processes are. We've done something, as far as I know, the same way, and well, the ordinance may allow it, that's fine. Why are we just now learning about this?
I can't explain that.
Once again, you learn something new every day. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Any other questions? The next item on the agenda then is 3413 Catalina Drive et al., Chamblee Village Park. It's 2016B-09.
Mayor and Council, the site plan and the situation are identical in this case. This is a companion variance case, which would depend upon approval of the rezoning in order for the variance to become in effect. It's the same property. And like the zoning case, it was deferred by Mayor and Council in order to give adequate time for ARC and Greta's review of the development of regional impact, which we've already covered. So there are a number of variances here, and I'll read the variance and recommendation. Staff recommends denial of variance number 1 from section 250-2A4B that requires all surface parking in excess of 100% of the minimum number of off-street parking spaces required by type of permitted use to be grasscrete or grass paved or other pervious paving or grass paving systems as approved by the development director. However, if the city council decides to approve this variance number 1, staff recommends such approval be subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the impervious surface coverage for this site shall not exceed 75%, which I believe they meet that. Number 2, the applicant shall include a 20-foot wide bioswale infiltration trench in the landscape to medians internal to the site in accordance with the Georgia Stormwater Management Manual Best Management Practices. And I believe they're willing to do that. Staff recommends denial of variance number 2 from section 230-5B of the UDO that requires a 5-foot wide landscape zone with street trees and street lights and a 5-foot sidewalk and pedestrian street lights along the frontages of all public streets. However, if the City Council decides to approve this variance, staff recommends that such approval be subject to the following conditions. The applicant shall include street trees and street lighting of the 10-foot wide multipurpose trail shown on the concept plan, and extend the multipurpose trail along Chamblee Tucker Road from Catalina Drive to Burke Drive. Staff recommends approval of variance number 3, requested from section 250-7A4A, that requires that developments where 30 or more parking spaces are provided shall provide compact parking spaces subject to the following conditions. 1, the mayor and council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial conditional to industrial transitional conditional. Number 2, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with a set of plans for 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by the conditions below or as otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Staff recommends approval of variance number 4 from section 300-17C that requires that non-residential and mixed-use developments with more than 600 feet of frontage along a single street be divided by streets into blocks having a minimum length of 400 feet measured from street curb to street curb. Such approval shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the mayor and council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial conditional to industrial transitional conditional. 2, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with a set of plans for 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by conditions below or as otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Staff recommends approval of variance number 5 from section 320-21A1 that requires interior landscaping islands of 200 square feet each for 10 parking spaces, and at the end of aisles within off-street parking lots designed for 20 or more spaces. Such approval shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the mayor and council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial conditional to industrial transitional. Number 2, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with a set of plans for 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by the conditions below or otherwise required by City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Number 3, the applicant shall include a 20-foot wide tile swale infiltration trench in the landscape medians internal to the site in accordance with the Georgia Stormwater Management Manual of Best Management Practices. Staff recommends approval of variance 6 from section 320-21A2 that requires the interior landscaping islands and the landscape of trees and shrubberies. Such approval shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the mayor and council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial conditional to industrial transitional conditional. 2, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with a set of plans for 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by the conditions below or otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Staff recommends approval of variance 6 from section 320-21A4 that requires a 5-foot grass strip between head-to-head rows of parking spaces. Such approval shall be subject to the following conditions. The Mayor and Council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial to industrial transitional conditional. 2, constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with a set of plans for 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by the conditions below or otherwise required by City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. 3, the applicant shall include a 20-foot wide tile swale infiltration trench in the landscape medians internal to the site in accordance with the Georgia Stormwater Management Manual of Best Management Practices. Staff recommends denial of variance 8 from section 350-25A that requires utilities, including telephone, electric power, and cable television in both public and private rights of way to be placed underground for all new developments with total floor areas of 20,000 square feet or more. However, if the City Council decides to approve variance 8, staff recommends such approval be subject to the following conditions. The applicant shall contribute an amount of funds to the city's streetscape bank as established in section 350-25B of the UDO, equivalent to the cost of constructing underground utilities along the entire property frontage of Burke Drive all the way to Chamblee Tucker Road. Staff recommends approval of variance 9 from section 250-7A1 that prohibits off-street surface parking located between a building and the street without an intervening building. Such approval shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the mayor and council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial conditional to industrial transitional conditional, subject to in conformity with a set of plans for the subject property identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by the conditions below or otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Number 2, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with, that was a duplicate, apologize. Number 3, the applicant should either provide a continuous 6-foot-high landscape berm or a continuous 6-foot-high solid wall or fence in front of the parking lots that are nearest to Chamblee Tucker Road and Chamblee Dunwoody Road. Staff recommends approval of variance number 10 from section 350-2C that requires that to the maximum extent possible, sidewalks and parking lots serving adjacent lots shall be interconnected to provide continuous driveway connections and pedestrian connections between adjoining lots and streets. Where necessary, the city may require access easements to be provided to ensure continuous access and egress routes connecting commercial office and multifamily lots. Such approval shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the mayor and council approves rezoning of the property from village commercial to industrial transitional conditional. And 2, the constructed development shall be in substantial conformity with the plans for 24.2 acres identified as Chamblee Village Park dated March 2nd, 2016, except for revisions to these plans required by the conditions below or otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Number 3, the applicant shall provide one 24-foot wide interparcel driveway and 5-foot wide sidewalk to the property lines on the north and south boundaries of the subject property in 2 locations with 24-foot wide interparcel driveways and 5-foot sidewalks to the property lines on the west boundary of the subject property opposite major east-west driveways that cross the property. These interparcel connections may be blocked by bollards and privacy fences or walls until the proposed vehicle inventory storage lot is repurposed. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Gary. Mark, do you have anything to add? Very good. We'll move on then with the public hearing portion of this, or the public comment period, I guess I should say. All those wishing to speak in favor, please come up and join Laurel.
Thank you, Laurel David, Galloway Law Group, 3500 Lennox Road. If we could go back to slide 7, please, on PowerPoint presentation. Gary's done obviously a very good job summarizing all the variance requests. In a nutshell, the parking on this property will be done by professionals. Therefore, and the cars will be parked sort of top to tail. So many of the requirements of a parking lot, which you would normally associate with a retail establishment, would not be needed here. So I'm just going to address in particular the variances for which staff has recommended denial. The first one being variance number 1, thank you. We've investigated grasscrete and other pervious paving options. Unfortunately, neither will work for an automobile inventory facility. First, more obviously, grass will not grow where cars are stored for long periods. And the pervious paving also requires regular pressure washing, which would be very difficult with a lot of cars stored on the property. In addition, pervious paving is not recommended for heavy loads, so as we will have tractor trailers on the property delivering vehicles, that will be an issue and could threaten the integrity of the pervious paving. However, Tennessee also wants to be a good steward of the stream buffers. So to that end, we've agreed to install bioswale infiltration trench in the landscape medians interior to the development, which are shown sort of in a close-up there on the slide. The stormwater on the property will be mostly above ground, and we'll use natural filtration methods, and we'll meet city, state, and FAA requirements. However, we will need to follow FAA requirements that, although they do allow above ground retention, there are restrictions on the types of plants and grasses that can be used there. Variance number 2 on the next slide pertains to installing sidewalks, trees and pedestrian lights along the property's frontage, really on Burke Drive. You can see there, there's only 2 areas where we are adjacent to Burke Drive. This are the 2 teeth that stick out there. Hennessy is asking not to install the streetscape in this area. These short portions of the property that are adjacent to the right-of-way. We did not propose a connection to this, and Burke Drive does have limited traffic. We thought it would make more sense that there was a comprehensive approach to streetscape on Burke Drive rather than us just installing it in these two small areas. However, Hennessy will extend the multi-use trail along Chamblee Tucker Road between Catalina and Burke Drive, as indicated in the variance conditions. The variance number 8 requires that all existing and proposed utilities be placed underground, but Hennessy is asking again not to have to do that on Burke Drive, but we will contribute funds to the city streetscape bank equivalent to that cost. And also for the cost of the frontage of Burke Drive all the way to Chamblee Tucker Road, although that's not actually part of the zoning application. On slide number 9, which is the main concept plan, in summary, Hennessy accepts all other suggested conditions, including streetlights and trees on the new Catalina Drive, enhanced landscaping, the multi-use trail, the addition of a landscape berm or a solid wall of fencing in front of the parking lots nearest to Chamblee Tucker Road and Chamblee Dunwoody Road, and the interparcel connections as long as they can remain blocked by bollards or other means until the proposed vehicle inventory facility is repurposed. And concluding again, this development will, if approved, allow us to provide automobile inventory parking for not only Hennessy, but potentially many other dealerships in the Chamblee area, reducing trailer truck traffic and congestion on Peachtree Boulevard and other city streets. And I'll take any questions you have.
Well, thank you, Laura. We need to finish this part first. Thank you. Anyone else wish to come up and speak in favor? Anyone wish to come up and speak in opposition? All right, Laura, we'll get to some questions. Questions?
So if we're going to do this by resolution, then I think that we should address the idea of both of these street and or whatever's contributed to the city for use as green space.
Let me clarify. The idea was to do it by resolution. The resolution can be done next month. We were trying to, so the information, instead of in the past, all of these things are getting put in the minutes, and so it takes a whole bunch of minutes to put it together for a clean record of what's occurring. So the resolution is just something that had to be voted on one time. It can still be next month. We can still put this in it, but if it's decided before next month, then there'll be one document that would represent the total action of the variance and all of the conditions, instead of a whole set of minutes that list them all as yes or no with changes. So I didn't mean to say that it was going to be a rush, but it will make it a better document and a cleaner document.
Because Gary made it sound like it was something that had to happen Tuesday.
And yes, originally that was the thought it could, but it doesn't have to happen Tuesday. The idea was to try to get it in one concise, single document.
Very good. Did you have another question? Okay.
So there's not a rush, just prior to next month.
Sure. Well, this is obviously a big piece of property and a large rezoning for the city. It just seems a little, it's different. Different is always challenging when you don't know what's going on. Any other questions?
Just got one more on mechanics. Would it just be the zoning included in that resolution, or would the variances go along with it?
Everything that way, so for the future record, it's easier to say, here's the resolution that included all of the actions. The way it is now, you'd have the zoning, and then if it was something where you did individual ones, then the minutes actually have, this one was, there was a motion to approve it, which didn't, this one was to deny it. This way we put the actual stipulations or conditions, and you vote in favor of all of them.
Thank you.
Laura, I have one more question for you, unless anybody else has any other questions. I want to go back to the community garden for just a moment. Does your client have any plans to participate in that community garden in any way?
Not at the moment, no.
They weren't planning to sponsor it in any way?
We could talk about that, but what I understood, it was a conceptual discussion, and we did not want to get involved. We'd let it get worked out with the city, and then...
Well, I know the Hennessy family's been wonderful community partners, so I just wondered if they were...
Oh, we have no aversion to helping with the garden. We just...
But they have no plans to do so at this point.
We don't have any details of whether
That's
the
not been
garden is
discussed,
something
or there's no...
possibility, so...
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And if I could just point out for clarity, if the right-of-way, if the zoning is approved, I think we would take that as an agreement in principle for the right-of-way land swap, the moving of the right-of-way, us donating right-of-way, and also the public park. However, that will have to be voted on as a separate item by city council at a later date. There would need to be quick claim deeds and obviously other legal things that would need to be sorted out. So,
Right, which is the reason why I just thought that something of this magnitude, when it felt rushed at some point, is the reason why we don't typically move things so quickly of this magnitude.
and if you would like more time to consider the conditions and have more discussions, we're quite happy with that.
Very good. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate you being here. All right, we're going to move on then. The next item is number 3 under public hearing. It's consideration of a development and community impact, which is 5208 Peachtree Boulevard.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this item has to do, as you know, with a facility that's principally purposed as self-storage, but includes some additional commercial space on the ground floor. And it's at the location is the corner of Peachtree Boulevard and Sexton Woods Drive. The project itself was just large enough to constitute a development of community impact. There are 600 of these self-storage units, as well as a significant amount of commercial space. It totals 106,500 square feet. There would also be 32 parking spaces. Complies with the minimum requirement. The proposal also includes a master signage plan as required. We have reviewed the development of community impact with respect to all the requirements of the ordinance. It has come to attention that there are several variations required, including variation from section 230-5B, requiring a minimum front yard of 20 feet on Peachtree Boulevard, where the applicant has provided a front yard of 7 feet. Variation from section 350-2A1D prohibits a driveway for a parcel with frontage on the boulevard when access may be provided from the side or rear street with a lesser classification. Variance from section 350-2C that requires interparcel driveways and sidewalk access from the subject property to the adjacent parcels on the north. This project was originally on your March agenda. It was deferred by the ARB. The applicant provided a letter requesting deferral until the April cycle meetings. This deferral was accepted by Mayor and Council in March, and then deferred again until the May work session at the request of ARB due to lack of adequate renderings and color drawings. However, the ARB has met now, and we're very impressed by the work of the applicant to show a rendering and color elevations and signage that appears to be very impressive. So based on the analysis, they recommended approval as submitted. So based on the analysis of this application, staff recommends approval subject to following conditions. Approval subject to development and substantial conformity with the plans, Peachtree Boulevard storage, sheets C21, C31, C41, C51, C61, C12.1, and C12.2 dated 4/25/2016, and the Broward-PB storage plan sheets A1 to A6 and elevations A7, A7.1 dated 4/25/2016 with any revisions that may be required by the Chamblee City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. Number 2, the sign information contained in the application sheets A7, A7.1, and A7.2 titled Broward PB Storage dated 4/25/2016 is accepted as the master signage plan for this project with any revisions to the plan noted below and otherwise required by the City of Chamblee Mayor and Council. The location of the monument sign shown on sheet A72 may need to be revised in order to show conformity with section 260-7B of the UDO, but the applicant has indicated a willingness to do that. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Gary. Mark, do you have anything to add?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to the public comment period. All those wishing to speak in favor, please come to the microphone. Tell us who you are and who you hang out with, and all that stuff. Of course, we know who you hang out with.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. I'm Julie Sellers with Persley Priest Ferguson, and happy to be here tonight with a self-storage project.
Julie, I haven't started the clock on this. Will you do me one big favor, please?
Yes.
Will you take those and maybe turn them around so the folks out there can see them? I know we have that in our agenda package,
Sure.
and I don't know if it's going to be available to run the board, but I'd rather the public see that than something that we've seen in our package.
Great, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to start the clock on you, Kelly.
Okay, I'll talk fast.
I thought you got paid to talk slow.
Not tonight. Julie Sellers here with Persley Priest Ferguson here on behalf of the applicant, and we are here for the DCI approval public hearing. I appreciate Gary's hard work and working with the ARB. This was deferred several times. We appreciate you accommodating us, and I think what we are here with tonight is a much better project than the original project, and it has addressed the concerns that had been expressed. And I think what you'll see is architectural renderings that show a building that does not look like a traditional self-storage building. It is a mixed-use building, and we have taken great lengths to accommodate the architectural design input from both the ARB members of the community as well as some of the city council members who were kind enough to share their thoughts with us. Here to answer any questions that you may have. One topic of conversation that has come up that I want to just go ahead and be proactive about is we understand that Chamblee wants to have projects that allow for some adaptive reuse, and we don't want to, I want to just hit it head on. At this time, we don't have a restaurant entity. We don't think that that's probably viable in the first few years of operation, but this project is being planned so that in the event that the market conditions do change, if we've got a sandwich shop or a coffee shop or some restaurant that wants to come and operate, they'll be able to do that in this facility. So what we have done and what we've shown on the plans is the piping that runs from the sanitary sewer line under the driveway, and then allowing for future piping as well as the grease trap that would be needed for a restaurant space. This would be different than some of the projects in Chamblee that have the residential use above and have had difficulty having the venting running. The benefit with the self-storage is you've got what we call the tower elements on the two corners that will allow for the venting for a potential restaurant in the future to be vented through those towers. You don't have the residents to worry about, and you really don't have any uses there that would interfere with the ability to do that in the future. So we are pleased to present this plan to you tonight. Happy to answer any questions that you may have, and appreciate your time. And
Thank you, Julie.
thanks.
Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to come up and speak in favor?
I have a silly question. It's not a matter of being in favor, and I know it's quick. Is there the development meeting where you discuss the idea? And I'll be shut up because I know no one has time for this nonsense. You have to keep on going, so go, back and forth. But where the ideas are discussed, because statistically speaking, or excuse me, not statistics. I'm not good at numbers yet. I see a lot of storages, and there's nothing wrong with them.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. You're
Yeah.
rambling on. All
That's why
this is
I
out of
need to
order.
know where I can
Just
come
let
in
you this
for
over.
those kind of
This is
questions.
a comment period right now. We have specific rules that I read prior to the public hearing starting.
Yeah, this is my first one.
Thank you. And so I read the rules, and so we've got 10 minutes for and 10 minutes against.
Right.
And then the council will ask questions of the staff and or the applicant. That's how the public hearing is structured to work. So at this point, we'll move forward with anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the opposition, or of the development. And then anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the development, please come up. Very good. Is there any...
I can't say, well, I'll speak in opposition then.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I hate to label it as thus.
And please give your name.
My name is Margaret Negron.
And your address, please.
I'm using a mailing address of 1381 Metropolitan
Where is that?
Parkway, that's Atlanta, Georgia, 30310. Sorry.
Do you live in the area?
I'm currently looking for work in the area, and I'm trying to get ID, but I won't discuss that, that's a waste of time.
Okay.
My concern is not necessarily opposition, it's a concern. It's not to water it down, but nonetheless, I'm just living in the area, in Laramie also. That being oversaturated with private storage, it's not conducive to making residents. That's a concern, you know what I mean? And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come up and speak in opposition? No? Okay. The council have any questions for the staff and or the applicant? Karen?
No, I don't.
The retail space you're proposing is only 20.5 feet deep. Can you speak a little bit to the intended users or why that was kept just so shallow and if there's an opportunity to potentially make some of it deeper?
Because this is on the Peach Street, the ordinance requires, and I think the desire of council is certainly to have a mixed use in this area to accommodate, and quite frankly, we don't want to have a building, and I don't think the city wants to have a building that has a lot of vacant, empty store frontage. So the depth of the commercial space on the bottom floor was designed in accordance with what the market conditions are now. So we're not, the building design as designed is to accommodate small offices. We're not anticipating, especially with the growth that we're seeing in Chamblee, we're not going to be competing with the larger retail sites. This would be ideal for an accountant, for an insurance agent, someone that lives in the neighborhood that perhaps has a home office now but would like to be out of the house and having a designated office to go to. Or at some point, if the market demand is there, a coffee shop or a sandwich shop, an ice cream shop, something along those lines, but not something that needs a large floor plan.
Thank you. Other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I will say seeing multiple land use attorneys in the audience reminds me of the good old days. The next item on the agenda is number 4, which is 2016 B-10, 3453 Pierce Drive. It is a variance application.
Yes, Mayor and Council, there are 2 variance applications now that are related in the sense that they're common ownership and properties are side by side. This is the first one. In each case, the applicant intends to repurpose an existing office warehouse building to provide for leased offices and seeks a number of variances, in this case 13, from the Unified Development Ordinance in order to achieve the specific plan that the applicant has in mind for the reuse of the building. So variance number 1, staff recommends approval of variance number 1 from section 230-2A, space dimensions table to reduce the required 20-foot rear building setback to 8.9 feet, which is what exists, to allow the existing building to remain in place. The next variance number 2, staff recommends denial of the variance from section 230-2A, space dimensions table that requires a maximum impervious surface coverage of 80% of the lot area. I believe the plan is something like 82% pervious, and I think you can achieve the 80%. Staff recommends denial of variance number 3 from section 230-2A, space dimensions table that requires a minimum of 20% of the lot area to be open space. That would be similar to the previous one. Staff recommends approval of variance 4 from section 230-6A2 that prohibits automobile parking within the front yard. There's existing angle parking that seems to be necessary since he doesn't have a rear yard. Staff recommends denial of variance 5 from section 230-29A1 that requires a building to have an entrance facing and be accessible from the street. The applicant has since redesigned the building to achieve this, but it wasn't received in time to go to your package. Staff recommends approval of variance number 6 from section 230-33A1 that requires building walls that extend 100 feet in length to use offsets such as projections, recesses, and changes in floor level to add architectural interest and variety, and requires parapets and building masses exceeding 100 continuous linear feet to be varied in height and projection, to use decorative elements such as crown moldings, tinsel, brick soldier courses, or similar detail. Staff recommends approval of variance 7 from section 250-2A5E that requires interparcel access with adjacent properties, but subject to the following condition. Upon written request of the City of Chamblee, the applicant shall remove the driveway connection shown with the intervening strip of property owned by J.E.H. Marr Holdings and cooperate with the city to facilitate design and construction of the rail trail extension across Pierce Drive and through this portion of the property. Staff recommends approval of variance number 8 from section 250-7A1 that prohibits parking located between the building and street. Staff recommends approval of variance 9 from section 250-7B5 that requires adjacent parking lots to be interconnected. Staff recommends approval of variance 10 from section 320-28 that requires a 10-foot wide landscape strip along all street frontages. Staff recommends denial of variance 11 from section 320-21A1 that requires parking lots to be landscaped with landscape islands located no further apart than every 10 parking spaces and at the terminus of all rows of parking. However, if the City Council prefers to approve this variance, staff recommends such approval be subject to the following conditions. Number 1, landscaping of the parking lot shall be shown on the conceptual landscape plan sheet LC10 dated 3/29/2016, except that the 2 landscape islands shown on sheet 3 shall be landscaped to meet the standards of section 320-21A2. Staff recommends approval of variance 12 from section 350-2A1E that prohibits driveways between the building and the street except when perpendicular to the street. Staff recommends approval of variance 13 from section 350-2A2C that allows only one driveway for each 400 feet of property frontage on a secondary street subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall completely remove the third curb cut driveway in front of the subject property, being the farthest one to the northwest. 2, the applicant shall vacate its easement on parcel 18-299-11-008 upon written request from the City of Chamblee and cooperate with the city to facilitate design and construction of the rail trail extension across Pierce Drive and into the subject property. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Gary. Mark, do you have anything to add? No, sir. Very good. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the variance application, please come to the microphone and tell us who you are, your address,
Hello.
or whatever you want to tell us, actually.
My name is Eli Green. I work for Parkside Partners, 1427 Mason Street, Atlanta, 30324. Mayor, City Council, thank you all for your time today. I work with Gary Matthews, who some of y'all know, who's worked very closely with Gary Cornell. Unfortunately, Gary's out of town. Parkside Chamblee, this project, I speak of it in its entirety because we look at it as one project, even though it's 2 separate variance requests, will be a project that's very similar to our 5256 project, which is an adaptive reuse of a former warehouse building most of y'all are aware of, that we will convert into roughly 55,000 square feet of office space on Pierce Drive. In essence, y'all, in addition to the traditional adaptive reuse that's going to be pulled up, you can see the renderings here. We plan some significant streetscape improvements as well as on-street parking in Pierce Drive, and we are extremely excited about the connectivity with future rail trail. That's a very important part long-term of this development for us, and so we look forward to working with the city on that front. This project ultimately we hope will bring somewhere between 175 and 250 jobs to Chamblee, and hopefully some of those jobs are coming from the local area as well as coming from out of town. One of the largest challenges that we have with this project, given the number of jobs that will be working here, is parking. And we're making every effort to maximize what we can within the existing regulations. So as you'll see and as you've heard, we're doing our best to get as much parking as we can to accommodate the jobs and the people that are going to be working here. I'm here to answer any questions, as is our architect, Eric Brock. So thank you all very much.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? That's easy for me to say. Anyone else wishing to come up and speak in favor? All right, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the variance application at 3453 Pierce Drive? Council have any questions? I have one, and I apologize, I haven't looked at it that closely. You'll have to come back up and ask your question. Along Pierce Drive.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to look at it on the monitor here. I can't really tell. Is there on-street parking along there as well?
There's not currently any on-street parking on Pierce right now.
No. Are you proposing on-street parking in your plan?
Yes, we're proposing it on both sides.
I just couldn't get it up here on this one, and my eyes aren't that good. There we go.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
So, and are you considering that as part of your parking calculation?
We are considering it as part of our overall parking calculation. Because we're within 1,000 feet of MARTA, we technically don't have a parking requirement, but as many of you all know, and given those job counts that I was just referencing, we do need parking.
Right. No, I get it. Gary, question for you. The width of Pierce Drive there, would there be any opportunity to allow for angle parking along that?
There may be some opportunities. In fact, we've discussed with the applicant perhaps a reconsideration of his plan in the near future to see where angle parking might substitute for the parallel parking.
So you look like you put your hand up in the air.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to touch on that, particularly on the southern side of Pierce, which is the bottom of the page. You can see the right-of-way. That's the bottom dashed line. And right now, that area currently contemplates parallel parking, but we have considered the possibility of staying within the right-of-way and doing angle parking at the very least right there, because the right-of-way is so wide.
What they do is move the sidewalk further south.
Sure, but does that affect the streetscape, the typical in any way?
The streetscape and sidewalk would shift to the south, and the parking would be along the street in angled fashion. So we could achieve all.
I just know you can pick up. I used to know the percentage, but I stopped talking to people about angle parking because there doesn't seem to ever be an interest in it. All right, so I'll blow your mind. Have you considered rear end angle parking on this street?
Rear end? I'd love to know how that works.
It works actually like 1,000 times better than head end angle parking, but nobody will do it because nobody will adapt to it. I'm not going to go into boring you with why it works better, but
Can we have an offline conversation about that? Look, I think that generally speaking, parallel parking and/or angle parking, obviously, the more we can get, the better. But
yeah,
also,
no, I'm trying to give solutions, and it sounds like the staff's already had that conversation with you.
And from a traffic calming standpoint, we're obviously in favor of all those.
Oh man, I go by there really fast. I don't want you to slow down.
You're the mayor.
Would you please tell the police officer? All right, very good. So Gary, we're looking at angle parking line. I'm just trying to help pick up capacity everywhere we can. We know that, right? We're looking at that. We know we've got parking crunches. What we don't want to do is exacerbate the parking crunches that we have in this district for lots of other uses. So anything that you can do to work with our staff to try to figure out how to increase your parking is greatly appreciated.
We're more than willing to work with
Kyle and Gary are very aware of that as well. Thanks, Eli.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. All right. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I guess we still get to hear about this particular project because, as you said, it's two pieces of property, which is then 20160-11, which is 3467 Pierce Drive variance application.
Yes, sir. And I just want, for a note of clarification, one difference procedurally, because we have this provision 270-8C1 about what things apply to a redevelopment project, and that provides that when the developer spends more than 125% of the building value on streetscape and other kinds of improvements, and we've just kind of talked about the magnitude of that certain of the development requirements don't any longer apply because we're trying to allow the redevelopment in proportion and the implementation of the ordinance in proportion to the redevelopment. So there's some of these variances that won't be required on this property that were required on the other, simply because they're going to invest, they intend to invest well over the 125% mark. So the number of variances they need are just a few, and I will read through them now. Staff recommends denial, however, of variance number 1 from section 350-2A1C that limits the width of a two-way driveway to 24 feet. They've actually changed the plan already, and they now conform if they follow this changed plan.
Gary, I'm going to stop you there. Just
Yes, sir.
do we have that plan in our package?
No, sir, I'm sorry, but
So
I
the
got
challenge, is
things.
we've been through this before, is the challenge is to the council is there to review what they have before them.
Yes, sir, and if you deny this variance, they can come, that will be fine. It
Well,
won't
that's
hurt
good to
them.
know. Okay.
That's all I'm
Thank
trying
you.
to say. And I apologize that I couldn't get it to you, but
No,
I
that's
just
fine.
received it a couple of days ago. Staff recommends approval of variance number 2 from section 350-2A1F that allows only one curb cut on the same street frontage with less than 400 feet of frontage, subject to the following condition. 1, the applicant shall eliminate the curb cut shown on the southeastern corner of the subject property, and the city will consult with the applicant to determine how best to redesign Pierce Drive to provide additional parking spaces. That fits right into what we just discussed, and they're willing to do that. Staff recommends approval of variance number 3 from section 350-2A2A that requires a minimum spacing of 244 feet between driveways located on the same side of a secondary street where the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, subject to the following condition. 1, the applicant shall eliminate the curb cut shown in the southeastern corner of the subject property. The city will consult with the applicant to determine how best to redesign Pierce Drive to provide additional parking spaces. Again, what I'm saying is that I believe the applicant and we worked out in accordance with these recommendations, and if you're willing to accept these recommendations as shown, I think the applicant is also willing to come to a resolution on all 3 of these matters.
Thank you, Gary. Mark, do you have anything to add? All right. So those wishing to speak in favor, please come up to the microphone. You like you good? Come up and say you're in favor.
I'm in favor, it's the same project.
Very good. You still have his name, right? I got it. Those silly regs that we go by. All right. Is there any other questions or anything else? No? Okay. Very good.
Actually, would you pull up the
Or not?
concept drawing from the last one? Because this does help a lot. And in our packet, in the site description, it says that you talk about the strip of rail spur that is within the JEH Mar Holdings Incorporated.
Yes.
And that's highlighted in yellow. Can you go a little bit further into that?
Okay. You'll remember there was a property on Chamblee Dunwoody Road, 3550. We approved a townhome plan, and it had this funny, long, skinny tail. Well, this is the funny, long, skinny tail that came down through, out of that property and down to Pierce. It circles and divides these 2 pieces of property. So Mr. Matthews has arranged for an easement to control that strip. And his intent is to help us to save room for the trail. In the first stage of development, however, he thinks if we're not ready for the trail, he'll probably convert that narrow strip of property to some form of parallel parking and a connection to the existing parking lot. We don't want him to continue the driveway, however, that comes out of that, because it creates just too many one curb cut after another situations. And he's willing to eliminate that other driveway that you see very wide, that's 60 feet wide, and has parking spaces that would kind of force people to back out into the street. He's identified those as some he can eliminate, and we're going to work with him to replace them with parallel parking or angle parking so that he won't lose parking but have safer parking than that would be. So we think the rail trail can slide down this particular narrow stretch and then turn into Pierce and cross Pierce and be between his driveways will be on either side. There'll be some parallel parking spaces along piers. And I think it'll all come together. We just don't have the final site plan to show you yet, but we're working cooperatively to get there.
Okay.
Other questions? It's like deja vu all over again. I sat here some time ago and we approved an easement that people park on now. Anyway, all right, care to get up? Anybody? Anybody?
Motion to exit the public hearings portion of the meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, so we're out of the public hearing. We're going to move on to the work session. I'll let y'all know for those of you following along. Items 1 through 5 here will appear on your agenda later on. Those will not be taken up again this evening. They will be taken up on Tuesday evening. So we'll move on then. Announcements, presentations. We have an economic development strategic plan update. Nope, is that for Tuesday evening or is that tonight? Okay. Come on up. And I'll ask you before you get started, how long do you plan to present?
How long can I have?
About 10 minutes. That's what our standing rules are, but nobody ever seems to care about our standing rules. So, 20 last time was a little excessive, but we like to try to keep it to 10 minutes. That's what the standing rules and procedures say.
Okay. We'll make this very, very short and sweet then. Mark, is there a way for you to control the slides by any chance? Thank you, sir. So, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. For those of you who don't remember, I'm Kyle Flunky with RKG Associates. Work completed. You saw the presentation of the first handful of tasks the last time I was here about a month ago. Tonight we're going to be talking about opportunity site identification. I want to give you a couple of caveats. First off, these are initial ideas and strategies. These are being vetted through you and through the steering committee. We're continuing to look at them as we continue on with the analysis. Feedback from the council, from the steering committee, from the interviews, from the market data that we're collecting will continue to help and reform these. Second thing is, these are not intended to be the only site to be looking for from an economic development perspective. However, we feel that the city is going to be proactive in trying to attract and retain jobs and fiscal responsibility for the community. These are the ones that we would believe have the greatest potential for benefit to the city. The next thing is that we have not prioritized or provided any sort of time frame on any of these. These are just to get the ideas out there so that you can review them. As we go through this process, we'll continue to refine and say, we think these 4 are the ones you should look at first, second, third, right down the line. What you're looking at here is the draft goals, and I presented these last time we were together. They continue to be relevant. We haven't had many requests for changes, additions, or removals. As I said last time, I'll say again, if you have a particular concern or questions about this, please let me know and we can have a conversation about that. So in terms of the opportunity site analysis, we broke the city down into 8 individual opportunity areas. You can see them here on the map. They effectively cover almost all of the city's commercial activity centers. There are some, for example, along 85 that we just felt like, from an investment and change perspective, not likely going to have a lot of opportunities. So you can see they're all color-coded, and I'm going to very, very briefly walk you through each one of these. In terms of the analysis, and I'm going to skip straight to the punchline, we looked at existing land uses, we looked at vacancies both from undeveloped parcels, parcels that are publicly held, and then parcels that have a lot of building vacancy or some building vacancy into them. So for this opportunity, Area 1, which if you can tell, and I don't know if this thing has a laser pointer or not, but it basically is the portion of the city that straddles 285. We think there are 2 opportunity sites really to focus on. The first one, as you see there, is what we're calling the Gateway Office Mixed Use, which would be the assemblage and redevelopment of what's now a number of restaurants and a bowling alley that front 285. And the other one is what we're calling Flex Conversion, which is trying to provide stability for the back portion of Perimeter Park Drive, where you still have some office flex space, trying to take a very challenged and hard to access area and then continue and provide opportunities for additional commercial flex development, particularly as there are other parcels within the city where we're recommending moving them from commercial to residential. So in effect, what you're seeing here is, 1, how do we define a new northern gateway into the city to try and provide some sort of signature project that could be multi-stories, high-rise, trying to mirror what's on the other side. The other is, how do we take a very challenging area, connect it and preserve some of the existing commercial that's up there, and then provide opportunities for additional commercial development, particularly on the flex side. And you can review this at your leisure. The second area, we broke basically Peachtree Boulevard into 3 pieces, what I call Peachtree Boulevard North, Peachtree Boulevard South, and downtown. What you're looking at here is the north part, marked by the large portion of automotive uses up there on the north end. You have that strong industrial on the side that straddles Petrie Road and the assembly plant site, and then it transitions down to more traditional commercial at Chamblee Plaza. Looking here in terms of, there's not a whole lot of vacant land or vacancy in buildings. There are some, but not substantial. In terms of opportunity sites, the first one, what we call the mixed-use anchor right there at Chamblee Plaza Shopping Center, we really think this is a great opportunity to create connectivity between that automotive industrial north, the transitioning portion on the south side, which you're seeing a lot of up close to the street, residential mixed use, and then downtown. And the idea there is around trying to create a development program that is not on the same scale, but complements downtown rather than competes with it. A different mix of uses, maybe heavier on office, commercial space, and then maybe a transition where you move from the commercial or mixed use and then into something more like townhouses in the back end that is more complementary to the residential community that's back there. The other one is the two individual streets there. One is Clyde, and I believe the other one is Terrell. These are just kind of random neighborhood streets that are just stuck in the middle of an industrial area. Long-term strategy here is we believe there's some opportunity there for acquisition assembly, and then move them back into the use that's more conducive with the area around them. Potentially as additional support opportunities for the automotive industry if so necessary, but something that could be more flex service redevelopment. In terms of Area 3, the downtown, I don't need to tell you a whole lot about this. We identified 4 potential opportunity areas. One we're calling the town center, which is consistent with the LCI plan and the direction that the city is trying to move on. We have 2 there, one which is the existing self-storage facility, and then the other is the vacant parcels across the street from City Hall, bound by Ingersoll and Broad, and we call them downtown expansion. And the difference there is the town center is really going to have that hub of activity, commercial fronting all streets, trying to generate some sort of public use space. These would be more similar to the types of development that you're getting, which is much smaller commercial footprint, some sort of residential. We believe that there should be additional mix of ownership residential in the downtown, not just apartment focused. These 2 sites we believe could be additional bodies, if you will, that could help make that town center more viable. The third one is up on the north end there. You can see, Adam, help me with the name of the road again, please. Lawson, yes, thank you. That's a street that has similar, it's a dead-end single road with residential units. That has seen a lot of conversion to commercial. It's kind of mixed of residential and commercial. We see this as a potential to become an antique row. The building that fronts Peachtree Boulevard is vacant right now. One concept that came out of this is, can we acquire those buildings and then provide a location where we can concentrate and celebrate the antique market that's here in the city of Chamblee in a manner that it provides them opportunities to stay part of the community and then opens up opportunities in other sites maybe closer into the town center.
Let me ask you real quick. Have you talked with the antique dealers about that?
No. These are pure throwing the spade against the wall, get that out there so that we can then have conversations about these ideas. So that's the downtown. The next is what we're calling Peachtree Boulevard South, or I'm calling it anyway. You've seen a lot of redevelopment activity as is marked with the dark gray here. The reality is there's not a whole lot that could happen down here, particularly in the short term. It's very well occupied, but we believe that there is ways for the city to continue to encourage what I'm calling the transformation of that area of Peachtree Boulevard and solidify the retail development that has occurred with the Lowe's and the Whole Foods connected into the multifamily mixed-use development that is occurring as you're moving up the street. So you continue to encourage and support that, not necessarily actively make it happen, but find ways to say, here's what we'd like to see here, and here's what we'd be willing to put on the table to make that happen sooner rather than later. Opportunity Area 5, how am I doing on time, Mr. Mayor?
Just you go, man.
Okay. So Opportunity Area 5, which is the northern part of PDK, you can see the airport. In terms of opportunity sites, we see the area, there's a lot of conversion in the area in between Claremont and the airport. Some still residential, a lot of conversion to automotive or airport-related uses. We would encourage the city to continue to push in that direction. The reality is having that area support PDK and its growth and continued success probably has a greater economic development bang for your buck than trying to maintain the residential that's in there. The MART accessible lot, that's the back part of the technical college. Right now it's a surface lot. I know they just finished it. However, as in our opinion, for a community like Chamblee, surface lots are the enemy of economic development. and if there's ways to work with them to identify opportunities to create reinvestment and maybe decade, that is a potential site where that can happen. Similarly, you have what was formerly a Chinese food or Asian restaurant on the corner there where it says Flex Expansion. I mean, it's a very large lot for a small retail footprint like that. We think there's a higher and better use connecting it to the other Flex operations that are going on in that area. Finally is what is right now a dirt soccer field that's south of where the county is building its animal control facility. We identify as community asset. It has some soccer goals on there, but we think if there's development potential there, and we're going to research into that it should be built to be consistent with what's going on there now. If not, then really putting in a real community asset, a park type.
Just so you know, that's the RPZ and nothing can happen in there. They're not even supposed to be playing soccer on that property.
Okay, well then that addresses that. So I appreciate that information. Area 6, which is what I'm calling the north end of Beaufort Highway, which is up where Chamblee Tucker Road. This map is rotated a little bit so that we can fit it on the screen. The reality here is that intersection right now has some potential both for commercial infill, some vacant lots that are adjacent to the farmers market, as well as trying to activate the northeast corner, which is a lot of small vacant parcels that have the potential for assemblage, and then trying to find something inspirational for the southwestern intersection where it's been marketed as a strip center, but we think there's a potential to make that something a little bit more substantial and really help build that 100% intersection right there at Chamblee, Tucker, and Beaufort. The other issue there is just ensuring that corner in particular stays private and doesn't eventually become consumed by CDC for expansion. Not that we don't want to support and have a thriving CDC presence, but from an economic development perspective, that has a lot of value from a commercial.
And just so that you know, the CDC brings a lot of economic development value to the city, not just eating up the property tax or business license fees. They bring a lot of economic value.
With no denying that.
They bring a lot of great paying jobs.
For Opportunity Area 7, which is the southern part of Beaufort Highway, here it's focusing more on making that continuing character of reinvestment that's occurring on Beaufort Highway, making sure that investment that's made, either facade improvement programs or storefront renovations, rehabilitations to try and improve the image there. You see another on Claremont Road there, airport expansion potential. Some of that is already county held. However, once again, from an economic development perspective, it has a higher value to the city, helping to support PDK and its operations and growth than trying to activate those small converted residences that front Claremont Road. The other part is what is or was a golf driving range. It does have some wetland issues where we're calling highest and best use, but the reality is that property still has a decent amount of acres that can be developed. Work with them to identify what can happen there in terms of supporting commercial growth, and then helping tie the two ends of Beaufort Highway together that have that gap in between, the commercial gap in between. Finally is Century Center. The reality here is that this is a thriving and active market. These are probably longer term plays, but number one is the two parking fields north of Century Parkway there. They're rarely full, and in my witnessing them, they usually get 10 to 20% occupied. The reality is there are redevelopment potential. Deck it and then see what other activity could happen there. And then the other area, which we're calling maximized density, is what it currently is, the single-story office flex, office condo usage. And the reality is when you look at the other development in there, it just doesn't fit anymore. And so long-term strategy is how do we then continue to maximize the value of Century Center and that growth and create that concentration of office use. We also heard from a number of folks in the real estate industry of the dearth of dining facilities in there for the existing tenants. Some form of mixed-use ground floor dining venue and some redevelopment building would go a long way to helping the marketability of that project as a whole. So that is the nickel tour of what we talked about with the steering committee yesterday. I want to thank you all for your time and happy to answer any questions you may have tonight or as we move forward.
Yeah, okay, we're going to move on. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Next item on the agenda then is staff action item. City Clerk, we have the approval of minutes, City Council public hearing work session from April 14, 2016. Bueller? Okay. Approval of minutes from City Council called meeting of April 19, 2016. And the approval of minutes from City Council regular meeting April 19, 2016. Good job. I mean, I did look at them, I just didn't get back to them. I did not have any corrections, so I got back to you. No, they're good, thank you. City Manager, one, we have consideration of a resolution in support of the National Public Works Week. Yeah, I believe, is this something you need to have action on right away?
It starts on the 15th, which is Sunday. So if you're willing to do that, it would be right before the week, or it could be on Tuesday at the beginning of the week, whichever you prefer to do.
Okay. It's a resolution, just as it sounds, supporting National Public Works Week.
Motion to approve
Go ahead.
of the resolution in support of recognizing National Public Works Week.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this item? No, Mark, thank you for bringing this to our attention. So we have a motion, second, in consideration of resolution in support of National Public Works Week to approve the resolution, not consideration of, but to approve the resolution in support of National Public Works Week. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Good job. Next one, our city manager, is confirmation employment of Parks and Recreation Director.
Mayor and council, I sent everybody a copy of the job description, I'm sorry, the application and the resume from the individual that I'm recommending for approval for the vacant Parks Director position. I didn't have it in time to put it in the packet. She tentatively accepted the offer last night before last. Her name is Jody Gilfillan. Jody lives just inside Dunwoody, on the other side of 285. She has been with Alpharetta Parks and Recreation for just over 16 years. On her resume, it's got a long list of all of the different responsibilities that she's had. She's pretty much the number 3 person, and when I called and checked references, her immediate boss couldn't say enough about her. They're disappointed to lose her and said that we're getting a quality person, but at the same time, they're completely behind her because they want to see her move up, and her 2 bosses are nowhere near planning to leave, and so she's going to have to move on to move up. I became aware that Roswell and Alpharetta do a lot of programming and plans together now and work together. So even the Roswell Parks and Rec Director, when I called him, he couldn't say enough good as well. She's worked with them. And I don't want to go down the list, but there's, I think, 3 people that are over all of their different areas. They've got a couple park areas that have large buildings. The largest one has a building and a giant swimming pool and a lot of different activities. She has had several years in each one of those. She's had significant budget exposure. She's been involved in a couple of grants. Alpharetta is also one of the few that actually is a certified. They're an accredited park and recreation agency, and she was involved in obtaining that accreditation. She also, for the last, I believe it was 3 years, has been the individual that was in charge of the Alpharetta, the Taste of Alpharetta, which has been a phenomenal success, such that several years ago they actually moved it to Thursday night in hopes of getting the attendance down some because it was too big and it locked up downtown Alpharetta when they had it on Saturday. I really think that she's an excellent candidate and that she's the perfect individual to fill this position. During the interview, it was quite obvious that she fits the style. She'll be a very active, excited part of the team, not just completely business-like. So it's my recommendation that y'all approve it.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody have any questions? Very good. Move on then. The next item on the agenda. I'll make sure we're not missing anything. Get the development department, as I mentioned earlier, 1 through 3 on there were discussed during the public hearing, and we'll move forward to Tuesday evening. Number 4 is a consideration of a variance request, which is 2016-V-08, which is 2050 Will Ross Court, which we had a public hearing on and was deferred till this month. Anything you to add, Gary?
No, sir. At the time, you asked the applicant for additional architectural information, and I believe they're prepared to present that to you.
They're going to present it now. It's not in our packet anywhere. Because
I have not seen it.
It really isn't forum to be presenting anything because basically the public hasn't had a time to do it. That's why
Yes,
our
sir.
agenda closes on the Thursday prior. It's supposed to be published. I believe the charter says like 2 days or the next day, and that's so that the public has a chance to review this information. It's not intended to be presented at the council at the work session.
Understand. What would you like to do? We will follow your directions, sir.
Well, what are the options of the council? This has been deferred 30 days.
Yes, sir. The options are to approve it and staff recommendations, to deny it, or to defer it again.
Is it to the council's discretion to defer it?
Yes, it would be.
Does the council want to discuss this in any way? No? Okay, well, it'll move forward to Tuesday evening for a motion to the council at that time. Item number 5 and 6 is a public hearing items that were discussed at the public hearing, which will move forward to Tuesday evening. 7 is consideration of a proposed UDO text amendment, which we may need to move to first read.
Yes, sir. There are a number of amendments that have been proposed by Mayor and Council. Those, along with a number of housekeeping amendments, that formed a list of over 60 items. What I've tried to do is take the low-hanging fruit that we could get started on immediately and put together a series of text amendments for your consideration. If you would like, I will touch briefly on each one.
I want to ask you a question about that, Gary. What is the challenge in moving this all forward at one time?
Just staff effort and trying to have 60-something amendments.
So you need more time, because rather than go through first read and all that several times, I would suggest to the council that this all be taken up at one time.
As you wish.
Well, no, it's not as I wish. It's as the council wishes, and that's what I'm suggesting. Because I've been through this, and I know that it takes a period of time to go to first read, and to do it piecemeal is why we discussed doing it collectively. So my suggestion is that you do it. How soon would you be able? You said those were the low-hanging fruit. There's a couple items on there that I don't understand why, and we can talk offline about why it would take long to figure those out. Changing storefront streets on particular streets, or some of the other items that maybe to me seem to be low-hanging fruit that aren't on this list.
So the question is whether to take them into consideration in the context of the economic development strategy that also suggests there's a limited amount of retail, for instance.
So you made the choice to not bring them forward.
At this point, yes, sir.
But that's not what you were directed to do from the council. You were directed from the council to bring forward all of those items that they directed you to bring forward.
Yes, sir. If you'll give me till July, I'll have them ready.
In what context?
As you wish, and we'll put together the list of ordinance changes that you wish, every one of them.
Okay,
for you
very
to
good. Is there
as a group in July.
any discussion about moving it to July and then moving it at that time? John's just pausing. No? Okay.
I'd like to see us discuss some of them if it warrants, because since we are leaving some of the staff discretion, I think.
What are we
going
leaving to staff discretion? I don't know that we've left anything to staff discretion. We've had 2 meetings on this and a special meeting on it to discuss all those items that were on the list, and the staff produced the things that they wanted to make sure were housekeeping items.
So we've provided guidance to staff, but some of it we've asked them to come back with specific figures and numbers.
Which ones are those, Gary? Those were the ones that we were going to continue to push forward, right? There was a list, if I remember correctly, there was a list of items that the council, through consent of at least a supermajority of the council, I don't think that we moved forward on any item that didn't at least have 4 out of 5 heads on yes. And then there were those items that we said, okay, these need further discussion. Those items are not the ones that I'm talking about now. Those items that need discussion, needed to be moved on to have another discussion on those. The items that we're talking about right now are the ones that there was a consent of the council to just move forward and adopt into the revisions to the UDO. That's the way I remember the process going. If somebody remembers it differently, please let me know.
My comment is just that where there were decisions to be made, that I think it might warrant discussing sooner, so it could go to first read in July with everything else presented. So for example, we discussed apartment sizes, which were on here, and potentially increasing them, but we did not discuss a number. We asked staff to come back with a recommendation.
So I don't have that. Have you had a time to address those items that were the ones that we, as a body, determined were not the low-hanging fruit, but that needed to have further discussion? Have you had a chance to look at those?
I will. That's why I said.
But you have not at this point. What I'm asking, are you prepared to answer the questions that Darren or others may ask of you upon those, about those items?
Not tonight.
Okay, so we don't have an opportunity to discuss those because staff's not prepared. Okay, so having said that, I would assume that this needs to move forward to July, that there's nothing to move forward on.
But these items are ready. I mean, I'm trying to still get my head around.
So here's the deal, John. They're going to need to be read a couple times, and it could all be done at one time. And it's much simpler to do it at one time than it is to do it piecemeal over a couple of times. I've been through this process several times before, and it's just simpler and cleaner to do it all at one time. We can leave it on the agenda, or look, or you can
move it on the agenda. Then we'll talk
well, you got to move it to first read if you would like. If you're either going to move it to first read, or you're going to remove it from the agenda.
Can we discuss the items that were presented this evening without moving it to first read?
It's on the agenda. You can discuss what you'd like. My recommendation is that you take them all at the same time. And I'm still kind of taken aback with the fact that staff did pick and choose what they wanted to put on here, not what they were directed to do by the council. But that's okay. I mean, what is it you would like to discuss?
I'll defer to the council. There are a couple items on what was presented that I have concerns about or questions about that I would like answered even if we don't move to first read so that we can knock them out and not discuss them again.
I mean, I was ready to move forward to first read on these items. I didn't really understand the complication, but I have to trust Eric somewhat on this because he's been through it a couple times.
Well, I'm just saying you can move it forward, John, but now it sounds like Darren wants to discuss items that we've discussed previously.
Are they on this list? Are they items on the
No, I just
list?
want to provide clarity because there are ones that are on here where, I don't agree with where we landed. I don't want to move them forward, but I would just like to make those concerns noted so that when we do move them forward, we can address them since they were presented and were included in the packet.
What is one of those items?
Apartment sizes, one-bedroom apartments at
That's
875 square feet.
Is that one that is ready to move forward tonight?
Yes, I'm not suggesting move it forward, I'm just...
Okay, that's okay. So look, I'm gonna back up for just a second because I tried to manage this in the way that you all wanted to see it.
It's on the list.
I got you. I don't have it in front of me. Okay, thank you very much. We went through and took all the lists of what everybody provided, and we said these are ones that we all have consensus on. Direct staff to move those forward. Everybody was okay with moving those forward, with the discussion that we had on those items. And then we said there were other items that needed further review and discussion because there wasn't consensus of the council. So now you're saying that there's not consensus on your part on these items that are before us tonight?
There was consensus that they needed to be increased, but there was not consensus on a number.
Okay.
We asked staff to come back with a recommendation.
Okay.
And so I'd like to discuss.
All right, what is the recommendation for that apartment size?
So they recommended 807, or I believe 850 square feet, which is very large. I would just ask staff and council would agree that we look at similar condo sizes, 1, 2, 3 bedroom condo sizes in the Buckhead area, similar to like the Navarre project, which are going to be around 775 square feet. I thought that was excessively large.
Gary, do you care to comment on your recommendation?
No, sir.
Okay.
There were others, but that would be one example.
Oh, keep going.
Okay. 3.C.7D, we talked about the easement for private streets being 40 feet. Just wanted to make sure that we noted somewhere in there that utilities could be placed in that easement area, which was in line with the intent. I'm not sure if it was or not. And on the curbs and gutters section, that we consider allowing roll curbing in addition to just concrete curbing for new subdivision. It was very defined and linear, and roll curbing is a little bit softer and less permissive as well. So that's the extent of my comments.
Is that in line with what you've recommended, Gary, for that item?
No, I haven't taken that into consideration. I must have lost track of that particular comment.
Was that something you had commented on before, Darren?
It was not, we talked about concrete and I saw it in reviewing the staff comments.
What else you got?
That was it?
That's just those two? Oh, okay.
3.
Oh, that was 3? I got lost track, all right. Okay, so the next thing to discuss as a body is do we take these together, which I believe to be a cleaner way to do it. I don't know, Gary, I'll ask for your professional opinion on whether we move these forward at this time and bring up the next month. How would you prefer that it be handled?
Yes, sir. What I was trying to do was take the ones that I thought could move forward quickly without a lot of study and give me some time to get going on the ones that take some study so that I'd have them ready by July.
I'm questioning the study part of some of this. I mean, we asked for some recommendations, but on other ones, like Storefront Street, it was directed from the council to bring those forward with what the Storefront Street would change. What do you need to study on that?
That's an example of one that's in here, ready for you to adopt.
Okay, that one's in here.
Take action. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was given bad information then. So, all right.
We recommend that we increase to 40 feet in depth, if that was the question that you're raising. And that
No, I'm sorry, and I apologize for not looking at this and taking the information from others that was not on the list, so.
I think the person that gave you that information, I didn't see the list of the actual streets that we listed on there. Was that in this?
No, that's a different question.
Okay.
And that's one that for which we've actually asked for input from our economic development consultant to tell you what the absorption.
Yeah, but that's not what staff was directed to do. Staff was directed to take those streets and turn them, and
Yes,
to
sir.
put them in the ordinance under storefront streets.
I was trying to be a professional and give you some feedback,
Okay.
that ramifications that might result.
Okay. Very good. So the question then, Gary, still remains, if you're going to move those forward as directed by the council next month, or would they be ready to move forward if the council so choose to move them all forward by Tuesday evening?
I'm talking about the ones that are presented before.
So I'm going to go back to the procedure that I thought that we were following. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong. That there was a list that we provided and then a list that the staff provided that were typically or predominantly housekeeping items. And we went through them and said, these are items that we want to have changed, and we discussed on them, and they seemed to me to be pretty straightforward. Regardless of, and again, I appreciate your professional opinion, and it's very valuable. But they were discussions that the councils had with them, amongst themselves, and things that had been discussed in the past, and they were asked to be moved forward. And then there was a list of items that needed to have further discussion. And those items we were going to take up later. These items, what I thought we were going to be moving forward at this point, were items that had been, as consent of the council, and again, nodding their heads, was to be brought forward. Again, it's on the agenda, we can discuss it, but it's missing several items.
That's correct. And I said I would have them all ready for you in July.
They wouldn't be ready by Tuesday?
All of them? No, sir.
Okay. Okay, so the question then still remains, is it better to move forward with what you have prepared for right now and move those to first read in on Tuesday? Or wait for you to be prepared in July for all of those items that are not the ones that there was not consensus on of the council, but all of those that we had consensus on? Would it be better to do part of them now and move them forward to first read, or to just wait and do them all next month?
I put them before you because I thought that was the better course. I'm sorry if I misunderstood you.
No, that's fine. So John, then if you want to move them forward, then we just need to move them forward to first read.
Gary, when you say July, do you mean July or June?
I mean, it's going to take 2 months, in my opinion.
Can you bring forward any others, you know?
Yes, sir. I have, what I was going to do, some in May, some in June, some in July. That was the plan. And
Okay, I guess I'm just taken aback a bit by, but that's all right. We'll get past that. So according to that, then this is your recommendation. Then, so John, you were correct then, and I'm wrong. In that I thought we could all have them ready. I thought that we had been told that we would all have them ready, and when it came back forward, we would have a group that we could approve all at the same time. Apparently, that's not the case. So you're right in this case that we will need to move these according to what staff is recommending, and what they'd like to do is move these forward for first read on Tuesday evening.
And somebody smarter than me told me how to use all of them. It's one about at a time. So I think
There you
there we
go.
go.
Well, okay. I don't think that analogy fits, but if you care to make a motion to move forward to first read, or not.
Motion to present the consideration of proposed UDO text amendments to first read.
Second.
Very good. Is there any discussion on that?
I have a question for the city attorney. If we were to make some minor changes to them, would we still be able to go to first read on Tuesday?
As a matter of fact, you can make minor changes between first and second read. Very good. So, and I will just add to your motion that being specific, it would be the council meeting next Tuesday evening, correct? So we have a motion and a second then to move forward to first read those UDO text amendments that the staff has provided information on to first read on the council meeting on Tuesday. All those in favor? Very good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda then is, where are we? 8, consideration of approval of sign variance. I believe we have a request for deferral until July. Jerry, do you need
Yes, that's correct.
Do you need some type of action from the council, or can they by consent say, or would you rather, would someone care to make a motion to move this forward to July?
Motion to defer the approval of sign variances 2015 B21 2901 Claremont Road until July, the July work session and council meeting.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Is there discussion on this item? So I have a motion and a second then to defer until the July 2016 work session the approval or the consideration of the approval for sign variances at 2901 Claremont Road. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Moving right along. Next item, economic development. We have a consideration of an intergovernmental agreement with the Chamblee DDA.
Thank you. Good evening.
Can you hear me?
This would be the intergovernmental agreement between the DDA and the city to allow the DDA to secure debt financing for a piece of property they have in contract for 5442 East Street Road. And I believe it's several iterations gone back and forth between DDA attorneys and Joe. I know that the final version was sent to Mark, so please share that as well. That's very similar action to the financial arrangement for the tables and chairs purchase last year, March.
Any questions?
Why are we only looking at a 3-year note? It sounds like that property might be vacant or it might take longer to come to be. Obviously, we don't want it to, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, so those debt payments would be on an interest-only note, and then there is remedies later to either refinance or this is a means to an end to affect redevelopment later, and the goal would not be for a long-term hold on this property.
And are there renewal provisions within the note that's being contemplated?
I'm sorry?
Are there any renewal provisions within the note that's being contemplated?
Well, we have terms, and yeah, I can share. We're going for the best deal. Of course, there's several banks that we're chasing. The IGA, of course, reflects one. The first one we got, put that document together, but it does not require us to use them. So right now, I can share the terms of those if you'd like. But right now, it's getting the lowest rate and the lowest fees in the package, so that the out-of-pocket expense is lowest.
The IGA did specify a 3-year note, but didn't it?
3-year interest only.
And is it a 3-year loan, or it's a loan that the first 3 years are interest only?
Well, they amortize. I think the tables and chairs was over 11 years. This one, I think, is 15, but interest only for 3 years.
So it's a full loan, but the first 3 years are interest only.
And then there's either a lump sum payment or regular payments with principal and interest. But there's opportunities to refinance that.
Okay, so the commitment is the 3-year commitment, but it is a fully amortizing loan over 15 years or 20 years, whatever it may be.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions? Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next item, board authorities and committees, DDA Main Street update. I had a conversation with the DDA chair. Do you have anything to add?
No, I just didn't see it here, so I didn't.
Yeah, no, when I had a conversation with him, he said he really didn't have anything new to add, other than what was on the agenda already this evening and some other items that he has briefed us on previously or moving forward. But he had a conflict in the schedule, and he said, "Do I need to try to?" I said, "No, I don't think you need to be there for that." So that's why David's not here tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you.
He got a hall pass. All right, man. Look, this is like the favorite page I've ever looked at. We've got city attorney, first read, second read. So we will have a first read then, Emmy, on Tuesday evening.
Yes, sir.
Everybody, A through F on mayor and council items, get a big old gold star, which brings us to number 7.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I needed to pause for
you
you.
needed to pause for me. I
I'm
needed
sorry,
to,
Brian, I got in a big old hurry.
If I could, I'd like to suspend the rules to add an item to the agenda.
Which is,
A resolution to support the Doraville tax allocation district for the GM.
very good, so if you just put that, just form a motion to ask to suspend the rules, and then we'll add an item in the council secretary.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to add this item to the agenda.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor? So we're suspending rules, now we need to add the actual item to the agenda.
Yes, if the city clerk would add an item to the agenda, I will get you a copy of the resolution, and I'll have that ready by tomorrow. A resolution to support the Doraville tax allocation district on the GM site.
I'm not sure if that requires a vote or not, but we'll just go ahead and vote on it. We have in the past. But so basically, if you have a motion to add that particular item to the agenda, is there a second on that?
Second.
So we have a motion second, then Emmy to add to the agenda resolution supporting the tax allocation district for Doraville. Very good. All those in favor? Very good. And then as Brian said, there's really not much to discuss on that this evening because we don't have the resolution. I did get a message from the mayor and have had several conversations about this issue, which I'm sure most of you have. So we will have a resolution and have that distributed prior to Tuesday evening for you all to review. Thank you. Thank you for stopping me, Mr. Allen.
Sure.
Brian had to spend the last 2 days with me. He's more sick.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry for it.
I
too.
I'm more sorry for that.
I'm just glad you weren't there. All right, next item. Number 7, citizen comments. Please make your way to the microphone. Tell us who you are, where you live, what's on your mind. It's your opportunity for 3 full minutes of fame. No? Okay, hearing none. I believe we have a issue to go into executive session on this evening. If someone care to make a motion to go into executive session.
Do we still have the listing as well?
No, we don't. We just have a first motion.
Motion to go into executive session to discuss the personnel.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion second to go into executive session to discuss.